Prime Minister speeds up state-owned enterprise restructuring. Vietnam sees more merger and acquisition in startup space. Hello and welcome to this edition of BizLine brought to you by VTV International. You're with me, Lina Pham. And as usual, we'll begin our program by reviewing the economic highlights over the past week. Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc has issued a directive to speed up the restructuring of state-owned enterprises in the period 2016-2020. In the next 5-year period, the Prime Minister asked relevant ministries and organizations to gear up efforts for hastening the restructuring of SOEs with a focus on quality rather than quantity. Accordingly, the Ministry of Finance was assigned to issue, in the first quarter of this year, decrees which aimed at clarifying accountability of consultancy organizations in evaluating state assets at SOEs for privatization and divestment, as well as raising mechanisms to attract strategic investors. The Prime Minister also asked to increase supervision to prevent losses to state assets during the restructuring progress, affirming the determination to handle loss-making SOEs and inefficient projects. Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc asked the shrimp industry to strive for an export value of $10 billion by 2025 during a conference on shrimp production held in the southernmost province of Cà Mau on Monday. He added that shrimp could be among leading sectors thanks to high demand. To achieve these targets, he stressed the importance of technology and links between farmers and businesses. Besides, the Prime Minister required the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development to submit a national action plan on the sector development. Ministry of Planning and Investment was also asked to seek official development aid, allocate investment capital to key shrimp zones. Good news for Vietnam seafood exporters. On Monday, the Australian Department of Agriculture and Water Resources announced a relaxation of the ban on importing shrimp and prawn meat products. Accordingly, dried prawns and shelf-stable prawn-based food products, aquaculture feed, together with cooked and uncooked prawns caught from the exclusive economic zone of Australia, are subject to the ban lift. The lift came after the department found out that the risk of white spot virus outbreak was low. The ban took effect on January the 9th, 2017, after the white spot virus outbreak was found to erupt in shrimp farms in the southeast of Queensland in December 2016. Mobile phones and textiles continued to dominate Vietnamese exports in the beginning of 2017. In only half a month, export turnover of mobile phones and electronic components increased by $251 million, which is equivalent to a growth rate of 23.7%. This is a goal of many export products. Along with mobile phones, another Vietnam's key export products, textiles, also saw strong growth of 11% in 2016. Within the first month of 2017, Vietnam has attracted $1.42 billion in foreign direct investment, up 6.6% year-on-year. Specifically, last month, the country attracted 175 FDI projects with a total registered capital of $1.24 billion. Besides, 76 registered projects were licensed for capital adjustment, with a capital increase of nearly $180 million. New registered capital is mostly focused on manufacturing sector, followed by real estate. Bình Dương province topped the country in FDI in the last month. In terms of investors, Singapore has surpassed South Korea, accounting for over 30% of total newly registered capital. The State Securities Commission, or SSC, has issued new regulations on which unlisted public company market, or UPCOM, shares on the premium list will be allowed for margin trading starting April this year. This decision will replace existing regulations on securities margin transactions. Margin trading allows investors to buy more stock than they would be able to normally. It means about 80 shares registered for trading under the Upcom Premium list that meet the conditions for margin trading will be eligible for margin purchases. This regulation still needs approval from the Hanoi Stock Exchange, which operates and manages the Upcom. We have just reviewed some of the economic highlights over the past week. Up next, we'll delve into some notable M&A deals in startup space in Vietnam and get some predictions for 2017 in our Crosstalk. Vietnam's startup space witnessed a spate of M&A or merger and acquisitions in 2016, dominated by overseas buyers seeking to tap into the country's growing business ecosystem. According to data compiled by Deal Street Asia, Vietnam recorded 30 successful mergers and acquisitions last year. As Vietnamese startups have become better known, they can catch the eyes of foreign investors. Some startups even successfully called for multi-million-dollar deals from U.S. Silicon Valley and world-leading investors, shaping up a booming year for startups. So what scenarios are awaiting in the year of 2017? We look for the answer with our guest today, Mr. Chaba Bundik, partner at Hatch Ventures and vice chairman of Central and Eastern European Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam, also former executive director of Eurocham. But first, let's take a look at the following.
Vietnam is set to have a record year for corporate deals in the startup space, led by venture capital firms. EdTech Group Topica acquired incubator Hub.it. Vina Game acquired 38% of Tiki for $17 million. E-wallet Momo received $28 million from Standard Chartered and Goldman Sachs. These are three prominent among 30 successful startups M&A transactions in 2016, with foreign buyers engaged in 6 transactions. There were also 2 major acquisitions of Vietnam-connected companies, the $260 million acquisition of wearable device maker Misfit by Fossil Group and 7-digit takeover of social app Tappy by Weeby.co. These are U.S. startups founded by Vietnamese entrepreneurs. Also within the year, 500 Startups, a Silicon Valley-based venture fund, announced it would set up a $10 million fund to pour capital into over 100 Vietnamese startups projects. Vietnam ecosystem has been proving more attractive comparatively to other regional countries. An expert from Topica Founder Institute pointed out that the increasing involvement of established companies in the startup space was an exciting development in 2016 and expected the tide will get closer in the years to come, especially in 2017.
Mr. Chaba Bundik, thank you very much for joining our Bizline program today.
Thank you.
As you have seen, 2016 marked a very successful year for the startup community in Vietnam, and we have seen many incentives from the government as well. The number of M&A deals have also been increasing. As a close watcher of the market, what's your assessment?
You know, Hatch works with startups back to 2012, and we can see the increasing number and better quality of startup flow every year. You know, we're managing the biggest startup event, so we have a competition there, and we have more and more applicants. And I was in Kuala Lumpur a few weeks ago. I was attending in a similar event, and it was very interesting to see the average quality of Vietnamese startups are already at the level of the Malaysian competitors. And as you mentioned, even the government started to support the startups. 2016 was the year of startups. Deputy Prime Minister is one of the champion, a biggest supporter of the startup community. The government of Da Nang and Ho Chi Minh City is setting up venture funds. So the startup community get more and more support, even from the government and also from the media, luckily.
Why have foreign and venture investors been paying more attention to startup in Vietnam rather than startups in other emerging markets?
Vietnam has its own potential. It's a big market. It's 3 times bigger than Malaysia. But we can see some interesting trends. The region itself is very interesting, and Vietnam has its own potential because of the economic growth, the population, and so on. But even in ASEAN level, even the private investors teamed up, and we established an alliance. It's called ASEAN Angel Alliance, to support each other, to be able to do cross-border investments even at the startup level. So it's a little bit of illusion to see that we have more and more interest for Vietnam. We have, definitely, but it partially for Vietnam, partially for the region.
So what sectors are the most favorite of merger and acquisition activities in startup, and what sectors are in potential?
I would say mainly, not only for M&A, but even lower level. The hot sectors are fintech, obviously, e-commerce, and education will be probably in 2017. E-commerce will stay as well. I expect some new trends or new businesses in new deals in tourism-related startups, and also agriculture. It's even at the startup level, it's very interesting, and a lot of interesting movements. Fintech, edtech is a worldwide trend. Agriculture is a little bit different. It's relating to the roots of Vietnam in general.
Mm-hmm. So do you think M&A trend have positive or negative impacts on startup?
Can help, because investors, they need an exit strategy. So they are in business, they are not donors. So they take the risk, they provide a lot of value for the company, they hold the hand of the startup. The startup can be much stronger with the investors, not only with the money, but because of the other values, the other assets the investors can provide for the company. But in the other hand, investors want to quit sooner or later. So after a few years, they would like to hand over to someone, sell their shares. This is why it would be much better for the whole ecosystem to see more M&A activities, especially in the startup level.
Mm-hmm.
The cafe, a chain of fusion cafes based in Hanoi, successfully called for $5.5 million worth of foreign investment capital in 2015. 1 year later, its CEO Dao Chi-Anh resigns from her post. Whether it is a failure or success, the case has impressed the startups community.
Khi mà bạn được đầu tư ấy, thì các nhà đầu tư cũng muốn bạn hoàn toàn thuộc về họ và ngày đêm bạn chỉ làm việc cho họ. Có rất nhiều mong muốn không làm được, tại vì là mình luôn phải đặt cái lợi ích nhà đầu tư lên trên đầu. Quá nhiều áp lực cho mình để mình đạt được những cái chỉ tiêu của họ, và mình cũng đạt được, nhưng mà nó có những cái trả giá. Cái đấy thì chẳng có thể nào biết được trừ phi bạn đã trải nghiệm.
It is estimated that about 80% of pre-investment time is taken by product development. Afterwards, a lot of time is usually spent managing relationships with investors.
Mọi người hơi hay nhầm tưởng rằng là gọi được vốn đầu tư đã là thành công. Thế nhưng mà trên thực tế, cái sốc lớn nhất của các bạn khi khởi nghiệp là sau khi gọi vốn được rồi thì các bạn, và sau khi làm được xong sản phẩm rồi, các bạn mới nhận ra bây giờ mình bắt đầu có số 0. Tức là cuộc chơi mới bắt đầu.
Các nhà đầu tư quan tâm đến là cái định hướng của công ty cộng với cái đội ngũ đang vận hành, đang làm việc cùng công ty để có một cái quyết định đầu tư. Và một cái ví dụ cụ thể là các nhà đầu tư thì rất là quan tâm đến việc là có bao nhiêu khách hàng họ quay lại VnChip hơn là việc bạn có thêm bao nhiêu khách hàng mới.
What scenarios are the most likely to occur when business are merged or acquired?
Actually, it's a very nice problem. So just imagine you manage your company, you start from zero, you don't have resources, but you work like 24/7, and somebody invests in your company, and you have to spend more money. That's a nice problem. Normally, companies, so they work based on a business plan. Part of the business plan is a financial plan. So once they call investor will ask, okay, how you will spend the money. So it's not a surprise for the companies. Hey, I have more money now to spend, because it should be well prepared, and even the investors ask in the level of very detailed how you will spend the money. So there is a good preparation for that even before you get the first installment. Also, investors usually they invest in a milestone based. So once you reach a certain result, then they will continue and do the finance.
So let's talk about the cafe case. So do you think maybe calling for more investment from investor will kind of divest the ownership of the startup owner?
There is some certain reality. If you need investors, an investor claim what they claim. If you agree on that, there are some consequences. If you have only one potential investor, then you have to accept these kind of terms and conditions. If you are lucky enough, and this is why I would be very happy to see more investors in the market. If there is a competition between investors, you can negotiate with them. Just like when you have more than one subcontractor, when you build a house, you will negotiate with these, when you negotiate with the others, and you will choose which is more favorable for you, and you will not lose hopefully not lose the ownership over your company. But again, it's life, it happens everywhere.
Mm-hmm. How should firms prepare for the post-investment scenarios?
It's very complicated. It has a lot of books and case studies in the business literature about that. We have to separate merge and acquisition. Merge is like a marriage. The two companies with two different corporate culture, and they have to agree how to continue. So just imagine there was one chief financial officer in one company, in the other chief financial officer, so who will report to whom? What are the common goals? What are the best practices? What practices one have to hand over from the other? So they have to build up a new company based on two existing companies. Therefore, it's kind of risky, and preparation and execution, good communication is essential to prepare both of the teams for the merge. Acquisition is somewhat more simple. There is a new owner, and the new owner will set the goals and say what to do and how to do. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit easier, but also make huge impact on the corporate culture. So the management has a big and important role to prepare the team and the whole company for the afterlife.
So can you maybe share your investment experience in other countries?
Startups are similar everywhere. They have a dream, and they're not necessarily realistic. So the role of an investor is to keep them on the ground and ask about the details and the practicalities. One of the common mistakes is a startup thinks an idea is everything. I have a good idea, so I will be rich tomorrow. However, the value of an idea is zero. The only question is the execution. If the startup and the startup leader can build a good team in a good market, solve a real life problem, and compete with others. So in this way, Vietnamese startups are very similar like European startups I have experience with. On the other hand, the general knowledge in business is a little bit like room for improvement, especially finance, and not just focus only on sales, but focus on the overall business.
Exits are the first and foremost issue in investors' eyes as they secure them a profitable return for their investments. Investors agree that corporates and even the government should pay more attention to preferential policies to investors, especially a mechanism for investors to easily take their money in and out.
Khi gọi vốn, bất kể công ty startup nào nếu muốn có nhà đầu tư thì đều phải trình bày cái vấn đề như thế cả. Thế nên là đối với từ phía nhà đầu tư là họ luôn luôn trông đợi vào những cái thời điểm như vậy. Tuy nhiên là trong quá trình hoạt động thì mọi thứ không bao giờ nó đứng nguyên cả, nó luôn luôn chuyển động. Thế nên là có những lúc mà cái thời điểm mà nhà đầu tư cần rút vốn, hoặc là cái thời điểm mà cái người founder cho rằng là thuận lợi để rút vốn thì không trùng với nhau. Thì đấy là cái lệch pha duy nhất, chứ nó không phải là cái việc là nhà founder không muốn là nhà đầu tư rút vốn. Nếu mà không muốn nhà đầu tư rút vốn thì đã không bao giờ có được đầu tư.
Cái thị trường bây giờ là thị trường toàn cầu. Nếu như mình không thu hút các quỹ đầu tư mạo hiểm nước ngoài thì các nước khác họ cũng sẽ thu hút, và cái thị phần của mình đối với cái thị trường đầu tư mạo hiểm cũng sẽ rơi vào tay nước khác. Đấy. Thì tôi cho rằng cái số 1 là làm sao có một cái cơ chế để giúp các nhà đầu tư mạo hiểm họ nhanh chóng họ tham gia vào cái thị trường Việt Nam, cũng như họ có thể thoái vốn khỏi thị trường Việt Nam một cách dễ dàng và nhanh chóng.
Meanwhile, these investors suggest that a strong collaboration among the startup ecosystem stakeholders will give a boost to foreign investors. He recognized this after investing in over 50 startups in the US, Singapore, and Indonesia, and now Vietnam.
By understanding what are the stakeholders involved, it will involve probably private investors like me, involve large corporations who have a main business to want to grow, and then connect them back with how startups are innovative and potentially can offer these large corporations a new product line, a new technology, a new team to acquire and expand their overall business. And for the government, this is about job creation and raising GDP.
As a market watcher, how do you compare the legal framework for M&A activities in Vietnam to other countries?
So you know, for foreigners, legal framework is an evergreen topic. At EuroCham, the Central Eastern European Chamber, this is our kind of day job to pick up these issues and advocate to the Vietnamese government how to make the life of the investors, not only foreigners, but investors in general, easier. So the framework is not really supportive. It's complicated and bureaucratic, and as investors, just like anyone else in business, we want to have two basic things: easy life and reasonable profit. Easy life is like if the administration, the licensing, the company establishment is slow and requires a lot of paperwork and stamp, it's slow, and it's against the competitiveness of Vietnam, against the competitiveness of the startups. Reasonable profit, obviously, you know, investors take the risk, so they deserve to have the profit.
Talking about exit strategy, what strategies are the most common? And should there be any further mechanism that allows foreign investors to easily withdraw from investment in Vietnam?
Theoretically, there are some way to have the exit. The most kind of well-known or desirable exit strategy is to go to the stock exchange, manage an IPO, and sell the shares. Mm-hmm. This is what even the startups want and the investors want. We can't see these startup stories from zero to the stock exchange here in Vietnam. So the other option is M&A, just to sell the shares to someone with follow-up investors. The difficulty is to repatriate the profit. Like just to start a business, get the license in the very beginning, in the very end to close a business, or to sell the shares and get the profit is very complicated and takes endless paperwork. So this is the other side of the regulatory issues. The Vietnamese government hopefully will make it easier for investors in the future. If we don't do this here in Vietnam, the others, with the support of other governments, will come to Vietnam and conquer the market. It will be good because they will employ people, but the companies, they will pay the tax in their home country, not in Vietnam. So this is why, like, it's a competitive issue even in the country level. And as the ASEAN integration is just became more kind of reality, we have to somewhat speed up.
Mm-hmm. So could you suggest some mechanism to help allow foreign investors to withdraw from investment in Vietnam?
I think the Malaysian examples are very good because the situation is somewhat similar, and we can learn a lot what kind of tax incentives they have even for the angel level, how they try to make the administration framework more favorable. So we don't have to go too far and all the time just copy what the US or the UK does, because, you know, these are different markets, they are well-developed markets.
Boasting over 1,500 startups, Vietnam has been listed as one of the most attractive host countries for foreign investment. Last year, Deputy Prime Minister Vũ Đức Đam approved Program 844, which simulates the real Silicon Valley. The program will incorporate special policies for startups and their investors, such as training activities, tax and other incentives for investment, and is recognized by insiders.
Ở nước nào họ cũng có một cái như thế để mà thực sự để mà phong trào khởi nghiệp được phát triển, thì nước nào họ cũng có một cái chương trình startup, ví dụ như startup Chile, startup Israel hay là startup Singapore, và chúng tôi cũng rất mừng có thể nói là 844 gần như là một cái gọi là startup Việt Nam.
However, with regard to investment activities, insiders also suggest big changes to be made in the years to come. These changes should take into account Vietnam's advantages as well as global conditions.
Cái nền kinh tế thế giới bây giờ nó đã đi theo chuyển dịch theo hướng dọc, chứ không còn là chiều ngang nữa. Có nghĩa là nó đã đi sâu vào công nghệ, đi sâu vào những cái sản phẩm rất là nhỏ nhưng có tính ảnh hưởng rất là lớn, và đấy là những cơ hội cho chúng ta.
Tôi nghĩ cái quan trọng hơn hết là hỗ trợ về mặt kiến thức và sự cọ sát quốc tế của các doanh nghiệp khởi nghiệp, và với manh mún của chúng ta hiện tại còn đang rất là thấp. Ví dụ như Singapore chẳng hạn, 1/3 là expat, là người nước ngoài, cọ sát hàng ngày của họ là rất là tốt. Đấy, tuy nhiên họ lại không có cái nền tảng mà về thị trường tốt như chúng ta.
I think what the government needs to do is, really relook at the investment law, so that to make it a bit more attractive for foreign investors to come here to actually commit funds into Vietnam, because a lot of times startups have to register themselves outside of Vietnam in order to get the funds from the region, for example, Singapore or Hong Kong.
What lessons learned can we take away for the 2016 M&A scenario to prepare for 2017?
The M&A activities is like the stock exchange. It's a good indicator of the economy. So if we can see more deals and higher level deals, it means the economy is in a good way. What we have to do better in 2017 is make the life of the companies and investors easier. So regulation, make it as simple as it possible. So it's not necessarily bad to pay tax, because we have to pay tax everywhere in the world. But if the administration takes like 4, 5, 10 times more than in a developed country, it's a competitive disadvantage for Vietnam. One more thing is tax incentives for business angels, so private individuals who spend their own money to help startups, and venture capital firms. So if they have tax incentives, they will, willing to invest much more or much in a higher level intensity. And this is, like I told you before, like the Malaysian case is a very good one. If there is a private investor invest money to a startup, 2 years later, 100% of the investment can be deductible from the personal income tax. So what we can see now in Malaysia, there are hundreds of new business angels are in the market, and in a monthly base they are evaluating more and more startups and they invest in. So we can see a lot of good activities in Malaysia.
Mm-hmm. So can you maybe give us your prediction about the M&A trend in Vietnam in 2017? Will it go vertical or horizontal?
It depends on what kind of investors and big companies are around smaller companies. What is the motivation between an M&A activity, merger and acquisition? Can be various. To buy a market, buy a technology, buy key people. It depends on the appetite of the companies are initiating the deal. If there is a big multinational company and want to buy the market, they buy a local company. That's one type of business. If two competitors merge because they can be stronger and more competitive together, it's a different type of activity. Again, we have very few number of deals just to start to separate and allocate them according to these categories. We need much more activities in the market to make this kind of evaluation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for joining our BizLine program.
Thank you.
Yeah. Vietnam's ranking as target country for M&A has jumped 9 spots from 2014 to become the 15th most attractive market in 2016, revealed the Institute for the Mergers, Acquisitions and Alliances. The outlook for M&A in startups looks encouraging going forward, as economists expect it to be in sync with the buoyant market. Meanwhile, creating more exposure to the public, in addition to strengthening the support legal framework and improved administrative procedures to startups' M&A activities, are crucial, making them attractive to investors. And that also wraps up this edition of BizLine. Thank you very much for watching. You can always rewatch our program at vtv4.vn or youtube.com/vtv4go. From our team here in Hanoi, until next time.